And coming up, we'll take a look at the men's 1,500-meter race. Saeed Owita holds the world record. We expect to see him in Barcelona later this summer.
Tom, this is a strong field with some outstanding runners, but if history is our guide, the expectations for the American metric mile team will be limited in Barcelona. Since the early days of cinder tracks and hand timing, the mile and its metric equivalent, the 1,500 meters, have always been one of track and field's marquee events. The United States has had a rich history of great milers over the years, but whether in eras past or in the era of electronic timing and high-tech tracks, Americans have had little success in the Olympic Games. In fact, America has not won a gold medal in the metric mile since Mel Shepherd's victory in the 1908 Olympics in London. Glenn Cunningham was known as the Iron Man for his prodigious racing schedule. He held the world mile record, but only won the silver medal in the Berlin 36 Games. The greatest American miler ever was Jim Ryan. He entered as the world record holder, but Ryan lost to Kenyan Kip Keino at the '68 Olympics. 4 years later, he fell in a qualifying race in Munich and never had a chance to contest for Olympic gold. He's come to symbolize the disappointments of the United States in the Olympic 1,500 meters. And the last American to be ranked #1 in the world in the mile was Marty LaCouri. LaCouri made the '68 Olympic team as a teenager, but was injured in '72 and '76. He believes that today's runners compete with less urgency than did he and Ryan.
Because we felt in the 70s that our careers would be over when we got out of college, we worked extremely hard, like there was no tomorrow, and we were successful. Today, athletes try to pace themselves, try to avoid injuries, try to be great when they're 27, and what they become is mediocre. They lose that spark somewhere along the line and settle for being mediocre and making a good living.
Californian Steve Scott has been among the best in the world since 1977. But though a member of 3 Olympic teams, his best Olympic finish was his 5th place in Seoul. Yet if Scott's career was frustrated at the brink of Olympic success, he feels that the future is bright for U.S. milers.
One in particular, I think, is just going to be a great middle distance runner, and that's Steve Holman from Georgetown. He's got all the tools, and it's just going to be now a matter of making that one big breakthrough where he really gets the confidence, and there'll be no stopping him.
Though 22-year-old Georgetown graduate Steve Holman is headed for law school, he won his first big race at the NCAAs earlier this month. 84 years after an American last won an Olympic gold medal in the 1,500 meters, there may be a new American star. Holman, who exhibits confidence tempered with humility, resists being anointed America's hope.
It seems to me that every year they're ready to dub the next great American miler, and it seems like it's more of a curse than a compliment. That's great that people think that of me. What I'm striving to do is do the best that I can and achieve some sort of consistency, which I haven't seen in recent years on milers, and I think that's what people are getting at. If I can perform at a high level consistently, then I'll be happy. Maybe I'm superstitious, but the people that they've been calling the next great American milers have been a little up and down lately.
Well, we'll see if he is the next great American miler, running without the hat today. Steve Scott, 36 years old, has looked good in the first 2 rounds here.
Looked like his old self in winning the first round and finishing strong in the second round.
Joe Falcon has been one of those that has tried to live up to that tag of America's next great miler unsuccessfully.
The fastest of anyone in this field this year.
And Terrence Harrington twice has won the U.S. championship in slow-paced, tactical-type races.
He wins when he comes from way back in the last lap. We may not see him early on, but he comes on strong.
Here are the competitors in the men's 1,500-meter final.
Jeff Atkinson won the trials in '88. Keep your eye on Charles Marsala. He's been very good in the first 2 heats that they had to run, the heat and the semifinal.
Top 3 advance to Barcelona. And the 1,500 meters, the metric mile is underway.
This is a very crowded field. 14 runners in the field because 2 runners fell in the semifinals and were placed in the finals in spite of the fact that they only jogged in. Kristen Cushing Murray is one of those 2, and Jeff Atkinson is the other.
And Darrell Frager goes out to take the early lead now with the field well bunched behind him as they come through the home stretch for the first time. And a runner has gone down, a runner has fallen, and it is Joe Falcon. Joe Falcon, considered one of the favorites, has fallen in the race and is now well behind. There's Falcon just crossing the finish line in the home stretch. The other runners, the lead pack, are in the turn. He is way behind. Falcon, one of the favorites, goes down early in the race.
There's just no way. Look at that gap that he's going to be able to work his way back up to that field. It's too much to make up. And someone else is down. Remember, we said 14 people. That's a lot for this field. That's Mike Morin from Arkansas who's down. So 2 people, and that's what happens when you have a tactical race like this. People get bunched up and those sorts of accidents occur.
Darrell Frager continues to lead. He's from Illinois State. Diane Moss is second. He's the 2-time NAIA champion from Adams State College. And Steve Holman on the inside is now being passed by Jim Spivey. So Spivey takes third, Holman back into fourth.
This is a race of nerves always. In the best of circumstances, with 2 people going down, it becomes more so. Everyone thinking, when should I make my move? It's a tactical race.
There's Joe Falcon still lagging behind the field after falling early.
Falcon won the big Bislett Games in Oslo 2 years ago, the first American to do that since Scott did it in the early 80s, but his 349 miles of memory now as Spivey takes the lead.
Jim Spivey now goes to the front. Steve Holman moves with him and takes over second. Frager, the other pace setter, is starting to fade back now, as it is Jim Spivey and Steve Holman that take up the pace, and Terrence Harrington surprisingly close to the pace as well. He's in fourth.
Holman in perfect position in second place. The right place for him to be. He's run very poor tactical races in both the qualifying round and the semifinals. Now he's running with great confidence. And Harrington, as you say, a big surprise, now moving up around third place.
Jim Spivey, the top-ranked American last year, leads the field. And now they have 1 lap to go. Jim Spivey in front. Steve Holman is second. Terrence Harrington is third.
It's come down to a 400-meter race. Who has the best speed over 400? Spivey missed out in 1988, finished 4th in the trials because he got into trouble on the last lap. No trouble for him now. The man in third, Terrence Harrington, has to be the favorite off a slow pace. But look at Holman. He's in a great position in second.
Spivey in front, trying to hold off Holman. Harrington is third, trying to kick it in. Greg Whiteley is fourth. They pulled away from the rest of the field. Now coming for the home stretch, Jim Spivey has the lead. Steve Holman second. In third is Terrence Harrington with Greg Whiteley. Jim Spivey continues to lead. Now Steve Holman moves to the outside to challenge. Spivey in front. Holman is second. Harrington is third. Coming for the line, it'll be Spivey, Holman, and Harrington.
Right around 54 seconds for the last lap, and an emotional victory for Jim Spivey. 4 years ago, he missed the team. He finished 4th to one of his training partners. Last year at the National Championships, 4th. He didn't go to the World Championships. And as emotional a victory as it is for him, a tragic failure for Joe Falcon. He falls down in the first lap.
Well, Craig, it was a rough race with 2 runners falling, and you have to question the wisdom of the Athletics Congress for reinstating the 2 runners, making a crowded field in a very precarious situation for the final.
Well, I mean, there was a sense of mercy that they had. The 2 people who fell were deemed to have fallen not by their own accord, but by what happened to them. They placed them in the final, and only a fast pace would have sorted things out so there wouldn't have been trouble. Obviously, 14 people was just too much for a tactical race.
Joe Falcon showing the abrasions of his fall in the first lap.
Watch the left-hand side of your screen. Frager leading on the right of the screen. He's setting a fairly slow pace. There's Joe Falcon with the black shorts. His leg gets caught. No foul there. He was just too close on all sides to the people around him. Not much he could do about that. And down he went. Steve Scott, that definitely hurt his race. He had to hurdle over Joe Falcon. This is not a steeplechase, it's a 1,500 meters. Scott never got in the race after that.
So the traffic in this race, a definite factor in determining the outcome.
And there you see his leg, his arm cut by his fall. And tremendous despair on the face of Joe Falcon.
Let's go down to Todd Christensen on the track.
And we're here with a very emotional Jim Spivey. Jim, down the stretch, it looked like you simply were not content just to qualify. You really wanted to win this one.
Well, when I came up the final turn, I just wanted him in top 3, and if Holman passed me, that was fine. And I glanced over my shoulder, and I thought, he's the only one. I just got to go for it, and I really didn't care about winning.
We're here with his coach, Ken Popejoy. Ken, can you put into words what it's like now after all of these fourth-place finishes?
Well, it's spectacular. Mike Durkin and I, who both coached Jim Spivey, laid this race out to make it Jim's race. Not to be a kicker's race, not to be anybody else's race, but Jim's race. He had the courage to make the move with a half mile to go. He believed in himself. We trained him all year for it, and he did just what we asked him to do.
Tom, it may be a new day for milers, but one old one's hanging in there. Some of those guys are going to have to wait for that first-place spot, Tom.
That's right. Jim Spivey, at 32 years old, wins the 1,500 meter, leading the contingent to Barcelona. A big mark and time for Holman, who meets the Olympic qualifying standard. We'll check in with Bob Costas after a word from your local station. A moment ago, we saw Joe Falcon fall in the 1,500 meter final, reminiscent of Munich in '72 when Jim Ryan of the U.S. went down.
An early qualifying round, Jim Ryan had the fastest mile time in the world that year, and down he went. He tried to get up, he tried to get back in the race, but he was very much stunned. He bruised his Adam's apple and was never able to get back in the race.
And just a few moments ago, Todd Christensen talked with Joe Falcon.
Thank you very much. We're here with Joe Falcon. And Joe, I can't help but see the parallel between this and 1972, Jim Ryan in the Olympics falling down. Certainly looking at the time at the end, I'd have to say you probably would have qualified.
Well, you know, you trained for 4 years to have an opportunity to do this, and I would have liked to have thought that I could have qualified. I'd run the fastest coming in, and it felt good in my heats, but you know, sometimes God does things for a reason, and you have to accept it. Right now, it's hard to accept, but I think in the next weeks or so, it'll take time, but I'll have to deal with it.
What exactly happened to you there?
Well, I had planned to move out after the first 200 and get up to the front. And I started to move out, and I felt someone hit me from behind, and that was the last thing I knew, and I was on the track. So I don't know if I was tripped or if I caught someone's spike or what, but the end result was I fell.
You talk about the fact of putting things in perspective, and maybe I'm putting too much pressure on you here, Joe, but you look at the number of people who are favored that went by the wayside during these trials. How do you put it in perspective?
Well, it's hard now. You know, when you say anytime you've trained as hard as I have really for 10 years, it's difficult. But I almost lost my father last year, and I'd much rather have him be alive than me make a team. So God does things in a reason now. It's just a matter of me to try to figure out how to deal with that. And I'll have other races ahead of me. I'm still only 26, but I really would have liked to have been on the Olympic team this year.
Thanks for talking with us, Joe. Appreciate it.